Hey, today we are going to be learning how to make small batches of kombucha. This recipe will make 3 16-ounce jars, which I think is the perfect amount for one person for about a week. And this takes about a 7-day brew cycle. So this is a great option if you don't have a giant crock. A lot of people will do continuous brew where they have a large amount of kombucha and they use a spigot to have it come out and have small batches and they bottle as they need it. But I don't have room for that setup. So I brew mine in a 1/2 gallon mason jar. It makes 3 16-ounce jars and I do it once a week. So I have that many, that makes about a cup every day, every other day, and it's the perfect amount for one person. And the beauty of this is you can scale up. You can do 2 mason jars or 3 mason jars, and it's not that hard to make a little bit more if you find that you're drinking more. Okay, what is kombucha? Kombucha is just fermented tea. It is naturally carbonated, which I think is really fun to drink. You can flavor it a second time with fruit if you like some fruit and sweetness to it. And I like it because it has a lot of probiotics and it's been really good for my stomach as I have done some healing of my own stomach. It's been a really instrumental part. Kombucha is made from a SCOBY. This is a stack of SCOBYs. We call them our alien babies. The SCOBY is one thing that you're going to need to find for this process. I found mine by just putting up a shout out on Facebook. I said, hey, does anyone local have an extra kombucha SCOBY that I could have? And a friend of mine had one and I just went and picked it up and then I could start this process. The tea is making another SCOBY on top of it all the time, so you have a whole bunch. So this is my collection. It would be really, really easy for me to share that with a friend. So it's like sourdough. Once you have it, it's really, really easy to share with friends. So just put a shout out on your local Facebook group or a community page and ask if anyone has one. And when you get it, you will need to have a SCOBY and some of the liquid. So this is raw kombucha or first fermented kombucha. So the liquid is also part of it. Okay, if you are new to kombucha, I highly recommend finding this book. Check it out from the library, borrow it from a friend, buy it off of Amazon. It is awesome. Every question that I had about starting out, because I didn't have anyone that I could learn from, I taught myself from this book. It is an excellent, excellent resource. So this is the Big Book of Kombucha, and I will link to this in the show notes. I love it. So what else? When you're educating yourself, you're going to need that. So, and then to start off, you're going to need 3 tea bags. I like to use organic tea. You can use black tea, that's the most common, but there's some variety. So I'm going to do 2 bags of black tea today and then a green tea. Sometimes I'll also use a green and white mix, and that helps to cut down on the caffeine. You're also going to need sugar, and I turned to this page in this book. She talks about the different kinds of sugar that are acceptable to make kombucha with. She says the best are evaporated cane juice or white sugar, and then acceptable are unrefined cane sugar or brown sugar, pasteurized honey, maple syrup. Experimental are molasses, coconut water, coconut palm sugar, liquid cane juice, inverted sugar. So that's good to know. I highly recommend organic because it just doesn't have some of the chemicals and processing and bleaching that non-organic do. So I have evaporated cane sugar and it is organic. That's why it is a little bit darker. So to prepare this, I have my SCOBY. So the very first time you're going to have to get this guy from a friend. So this is my SCOBY. And then you're going to need a 1/2 cup to 1 cup of first fermented kombucha. So this is raw or unflavored. This would be an unflavored. This first time you're not going to want to use a flavored kombucha. So this should come from your friend, or you can buy these from different companies online too. You'll get a little kit. So when the first time I got one, I was like, oh, I don't need this liquid. So I threw my liquid out, and you totally do. So keep the liquid about a 1/2 cup to a cup. You need a SCOBY, you only need a small one. And SCOBY stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. So this is just your culture, like your sourdough starter or your water kefir grains. This is the culture that is doing the fermentation process. And then, so I just add my sugar to that. It's 1/3 cup for this 1/2 gallon brew. I just boiled my water. When it comes to water, you're going to want to use dechlorinated. So if your city water is highly treated, you can let your water sit out on the counter overnight so that the chlorine can dissipate. If you have highly treated water, it's probably better to use filter or to buy distilled water. Well water actually works really well. The kombucha seems to like the minerals in it. So we have, the amount of water isn't a huge deal. So this is around 3 cups. I added my 1/3 of a cup of organic sugar. I have 3 tea bags. This would be the equivalent of about 3 tablespoons of loose leaf tea if you're gonna do it, if you have a soaker ball. So we're gonna let that steep for 5 minutes. After your tea bags is steep for 5 minutes, you're gonna wanna let that cool. Just let it hang out, because if you use too hot of tea, it's gonna kill the culture. It tolerates cold better than heat. So I like to add a little cold water to my jar. And the cold will help to cool down the warm tea. So here's my sweet tea. Then that leaves me enough room. I'm going to add my kombucha. So again, that was unflavored kombucha. Should have been the liquid. And so here's my little SCOBY. I just set him right on top. And generally they float, they don't always. This is just some material that I cut from downstairs. You could use a t-shirt, you could cut up pretty much anything you want. The idea for this is that it can still have some oxygen, but it keeps out fruit flies and dust. So it's a pretty tight weave. So then I just screw this on. And you're gonna set this somewhere out of direct sun. In ideal temperature is around 75 to 85. 80 kind of being right in the middle would be ideal. So I have a hutch in my dining room. I just set them in the corner. I just have a few little jars and bottles, and it's not a big setup. I don't have a big cart for it. It doesn't take up counter space in my kitchen. So this guy is ready. And now that I have the sweet tea, everything in there, it is gonna ferment for 3 to 7 days. And you can just get on a schedule. I like a stronger, more acidic kombucha. I don't mind if it's not super sweet. So I normally just keep a 7-day rotation. You're gonna wanna taste it. If it gets to be too vinegary, that means that it fermented longer. And if it's really sweet in the beginning and doesn't taste like kombucha yet, let it go a little bit longer. So you can test it around day 5, or you can just say, like, every 5 days I'm going to deal with this, or every 7 days. And just so you know, like most things that are live and active cultures, they will ferment quicker in warmer weather, because they just go through their processes quicker when it's warm, up to about 85, and then it'll slow back down because it just gets too hot and they get sluggish. So if your house is warm during the summer, it might actually slow the process down. But if it's only moderately warmer because you're running cooled air or something, it will speed it up. So in the winter, I let this ferment for 7 days. In the summer, I've been liking it better if I let it ferment for 5. So just play with it and see. So set this aside for 5 days. Okay, this one is 6 days old. This is the exact same process. This is the sweet tea, a little bit of extra liquid, a SCOBY. And so you can see on the top, your SCOBY might flow all the way to the top, but it's probably just kind of like hanging out in there. And it will grow a new one on the top. So this is the SCOBY. And he left some yeast behind. So I just remove it and I put him on a plate. So at this point, this is considered unflavored kombucha. It's not super carbonated. Sometimes it might have a little effervescence to it, but most of the time this is just raw, straight kombucha, unfiltered, and you definitely can drink it at this point. I like to bottle it a second time with fruit, or you can do herbs, you can do all kinds of things, and I think I really like the flavor and I like the carbonation that it adds. So after your 7 days have elapsed and you have let this kombucha sit, and now it's this kombucha. So this is 7-day-old sweet tea kombucha with the SCOBY. I took the SCOBY off. I just set them on a plate. You can just sit there. Workflow for this day is, very first I start my kettle and I make my sweet tea so that it has time to cool. And so that cooling sweet tea is sitting here, but now I'm going to bottle this a second time. So it's actually from the day that you start, it's going to be around 10 to 14 days before you even drink it if you're doing a second fruited ferment. So most of the time when it comes to fruit, you have so many options. I tend to use what is seasonal, what I have in stock, what I threw in my freezer. These are sweet cherries from our trees, and we put them in our freezer this spring. I have done apricot lately. In the winter, I will do beautiful citruses. I'll do pomegranate or tangerine and orange. In the fall, I'll make apple. So I tend to use what I have on hand, what's in my freezer. And if I am coming up short, I will use things like frozen organic berries from Costco. I'll just buy that great big giant bag and I will just chop up berries and put them in. So there are two methods that you can do to add the fruit. You need 1 to 2 ounces. It depends on how sweet you want it, how much flavor you want. You can either add, so we're doing 3 jars today. You can add 3 to 6 ounces of fruit to the jar of a blender and put in a splash of this finished kombucha. And then you can put the puree into the bottles, and then this will get a pulpier finished kombucha. It won't be like the store-bought one. It'll have some texture to it. If you can see this one, this is cherry and apricot, and it's really pulpy on the top. We just pour it in and drink it and just have some texture to it. If you do not like pulp, or if you want it more like store-bought kombucha, you can put in small pieces of berry, or in this case, cherry. I will half it or quarter the cherries and pop them into the bottle, and then I can strain it off when I am ready to drink it. So you have some options there, whatever's the easiest. I have gotten to the point where I do 1.5 gallons a week, so I just do 3 jars every week, and it is faster for me to dump some frozen or fresh fruit in the blender, add some of the fermented kombucha, the 7-day-old kombucha, blend it up and then add the puree. It's just a lot faster for me. But when I was only doing 3 jars at a time, and if I didn't want the pulp, I just added the fruit. Easy. So I'm going to show you that method so I don't have to get out my blender. So this is just sweet cherries. I just popped them in there. Not hard. These are brewing bottles, and they have a lock-on cap. You're going to want them for the second ferment because the carbonation makes a lot of pressure in the bottles. So you can buy these at health food stores. You can buy them on Amazon. A well-stocked hardware store would have them. So get a set of 6, because in your process, you're going to have 3 sitting on your shelf. And then after this week, you're going to ferment more, and they'll be sitting on your shelf while these go in your fridge. So if you have 1 half-gallon jar and 6 of these 16-ounce brewing bottles, that's the only really specialty ingredient or equipment that you need. A funnel is nice. And then the SCOBY. That's all you really need to get started besides that tea and sugar. You can use your favorites. We really like raspberry and blackberry mixed together. I have done strawberry rhubarb. You can do lemon, lime. You can add things like turmeric or ginger. You can add herbs. You can add fresh mint. There's so many options. In the winter or in late fall, I will just thinly slice some apple. I'll do little pieces that fit in the bottle, and I'll add a little bit of cinnamon, so it makes an apple cinnamon kombucha. In the spring, I was doing mint with strawberry and rhubarb, and it was just really excellent. So it's kind of whatever your heart desires, you can put in these bottles. Again, it's not rocket science. I tend to fill up the bottom about 1 inch. I assume it's close to 2 ounces per bottle of this frozen fruit. A funnel is really nice for this part. So this is like a squishy funnel that came with one of my sets of bottles. This is a funnel from the dollar store. They all work great. So sometimes I just pick it up more like that. It's a little bit easier to hold. Just funnel it in. And I do about halfway up the neck of the bottle. You can already see some of the natural carbonation, and it'll get a lot more carbonated this time. Okay, and that leaves me, this is about 2 cups, and you only need 1 cup to a half a cup. So you have the option of adding a 4th bottle, and then you can add more fruit to them so you can evenly distribute this between 4 bottles, but I found that it's not quite enough. So normally I will pour this into a cup and I will just drink it like that. I'm not going to worry about it today. So for these, just make sure that the rim doesn't have any fruit pieces on it. We're gonna clamp the lids on. I generally wipe them off because I'm putting them in my hutch, and then I'm just gonna put them over next to the one, and I let these sit for another 5 to 7 days. And then I put them in the fridge and they're ready to drink that next week. So this, normally again, I would pour some of this off, just drink it, save it. If I didn't want to drink it today, I could just save it and I would put that 1 cup of liquid in my smoothie in the morning. You have a lot of options because this is probably more than you need, or if you don't want to deal with it, just add your water. And then this is our sweet tea. And it's not, I just do it up to the top. I figure why not? And then this is the SCOBY I took off. It'll grow over time. And once it's over about a ½ inch thick, I will separate it. It kind of grows in layers, but this one's not huge. So I'm just gonna set him on top again. And then this is ready to ferment for a week. So now this is gonna sit for 5 to 7 days, and these are going to sit for 5 to 7 days. And then after that time, you will bottle this after it sits for 5 to 7 days, and you'll put these in the fridge and you'll drink them that week. And then you'll be on your cycle. So every week you will make a ½ gallon jar, you'll bottle 3, you'll drink 3. And that's how you do small batch kombucha. And it's one of my favorite things. I think people overestimate how hard it is. It really isn't. If you find that you're really warm or you're using really, really sweet fruit, you might want to burp your bottles. That just means open them about halfway through. I generally burp on day 3, 4, or 5, and then let them finish through day 7. And a lot of times I don't burp them, and I have very, very fizzy kombucha. In the summer when it is warm and I was using really, really sweet apricots, I actually had one, like the cap come off and it exploded everywhere. And that's the one time I wish I would have burped them, but it's uncommon. And if you are not using very sweet fruits, like if you had sour cherries, or if you were just, sometimes I'll do a turmeric and ginger kombucha. The ginger, something about the ginger, the kombucha really likes it. So if you're having a hard time getting a carbonation that you like during your second fermentation, add a little chunk of ginger. You won't taste it. You have to add quite a bit to taste the ginger, just maybe a ½ inch by a ¼ inch piece. Organic ginger, because it's not been irradiated, and so it still has the natural bacteria and yeast on the outside of the ginger. And chop it up into little pieces and just drop 1 into it, and that will increase your carbonation a lot. And I have a hard time getting organic ginger locally, and don't peel it, just leave the skin on. And so I will pick one up in town 2 hours away when I go, and I'll just cut it into the pieces I need for kombucha, and I just keep it in a freezer bag in my freezer, and it doesn't hurt it at all. And then I have these little pieces of ginger when I want to throw them in my kombucha or in my smoothies, which is really convenient. So that's how you make kombucha. Holler with questions. I'm gonna link to a post where I've written out FAQ, troubleshooting, some of that stuff. It's hard to include all of that into a video. So if you would like to read more about this process, I would love for you to hop over to Bless This Mess and do that. So I'm Melissa, Bless This Mess, and this is how you make kombucha.